Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm happy to be here. Thank
And
you for Claire for setting this up.
Yes, thank you. It's so nice that we are connected. So for those of you watching, myself and Emma have been exchanging emails and phone calls, but now we're face-to-face as can be in this new world we live in. And so it's really nice to be connected.
It is. It's nice to see people in their faces.
Yes, absolutely. And it's I think all of us are missing that sort of in-person connection, and this is the next best thing, right?
Yes.
I'm just trying to set my phone up so I'm not holding it. There you go. So just wanted to start off by saying thank you again for joining us. And for those that are watching, Emma is a registered social worker with the Social Work Consulting Group, which is amazing. And I've had the experience of working with them myself personally. So this is really nice that I get to work with them on this project as well. And in 2017, Emma founded MindCalm, which is a program that specializes in counseling to assist folks with emotional regulation, stress, anxiety, depression, and interpersonal relationships. So thank you for taking the time. I know of all the various industries, you guys are probably really busy right now and are a vital service to keeping us as a community still moving forward.
We're happy to help, and we're feeling very grateful to be busy, but it's true. It's obviously it's an extremely stressful time for so many folks, and that's why we're here.
Thank you. I just wanted to say also that when I put out this little poster that we're going to go live and we're going to be chatting about mental health, I've had so much positive feedback. So many vendors have reached out and said, thank you for doing this. I know a bride who really needs this. I've had brides private message us and say, thank you. This is not a topic. And generally, mental health is not a topic that a lot of people talk about comfortably. So it's great that we have had this opportunity and we've connected on it. And I'm really looking forward to diving into it.
Me too. Let's do it.
Okay, so for everyone who's watching, we sort of want to cover some of the larger issues that, from my experience, brides have been dealing with. The first one that we wanted to talk about, Emma, was this idea of grief, that everybody who has had their wedding dates come and go by already. They've had these plans in place about how their wedding day is going to look like, dreams they've been dreaming for a while now. And they've lost that. And it's been really difficult for them to cope with that and to sort of come to terms with this loss. Any insight on how they should face that and how they should move forward positively?
So I think you used the word grief in such a perfect way. And I personally was married a couple of years ago, and I remember it's this date that has so much energy and attention and positivity surrounded with that. Really, you're attached to it. You're attached to the wedding date. And when it's taken away from you for something that we all somewhat feel is so out of our control, what I'm seeing in my clients is that experience of grief, right? Maybe crying a lot, feeling irritable, maybe, and sometimes that irritability, anger, frustration, sadness can sometimes be turned at our partners, right? Yes. So this date that was really supposed to connect us is actually, for a lot of people that I'm working with, and it sounds like that you're seeing as well, it's creating this almost disconnection. So what I'm recommending is truly, first and foremost, to really accept and validate and kind of own that feeling, right? Because this is sad, right? And sometimes when we try and shift our emotional states too quickly, we don't allow ourselves to process through and actually kind of acknowledge the fact that your wedding was moved, it hurts. Right. And it's something that not just you were feeling, maybe your family was feeling, right? So to really reach out to those that were in your circle or your bridal party or your vendors, right? And say, this is really hard for me, right? Kind of being in that moment, being in that space, whether you need to be talking to those in your support circle about what you're feeling, right? To kind of get that shared empathy piece, right? That we're all kind of doing this together and feeling this together, right? Maybe journaling, right? Getting some thoughts out of our minds onto paper and actually putting some air into some of these thoughts, because I don't know about you, right? But at the end of the day, when our days have closed, and I'm sure with you, you're bumping events and there's a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty, our thoughts start swirling.
Yes, absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it's very hard for us to relax and feel okay, putting our heads down on the pillow and saying, but our wedding is canceled, right? Or our wedding is postponed, and it hurts. So journaling or doing some breathing or calling a friend or looking at your partner saying, like, I'm having a really hard day. Maybe we need to go for a walk. Maybe we need to think about, right, if our wedding is being moved, what are the exciting pieces that are going to be a part of that wedding if it's a different season, right? Maybe you start thinking about a color change. So small pieces, when you've acknowledged the sadness, when you've acknowledged the hurt and the anger and the frustration, you can start hooking on to small little changes that can start getting you excited about the next date.
So really, like, have that cry. Communicate. And that's something I heard that was really important, is communicate, find that support. Know who your support is. If it's your partner, if it's your family, if it's your bridal party, and your bridal party is meant to be your support all the way to your wedding day, and still use them at this time. Yes, it's an unconventional bridal party duty for sure, but you've chosen these friends to be there for you because they are important to you, they are special to you. So really using that support that you have to process that loss and that grief.
Exactly. And when you do reach out to your support system, I've seen some pretty amazing things come out of this time, right? When we're all limited, I'm actually finding some creative juices are starting in people that you never really realized were there. And so I know that another wedding was postponed, and they still decided to have somewhat of like a Zoom party, right, on the date, so that it could be remembered positively. You don't just have to be sitting there at home crying or having that moment. It's the role of the bridal party to lift up the couple, and there are ways and creative ways that we can get around this in this challenging time.
We, on that note, we had a few couples whose original wedding dates have come and gone, and they've shared with us we've worked together with some of them. Some of them have shared with us some fun stuff that they did on the day, so that original date is still a memorable one. One of the couples said that they actually exchanged their rings with each other just to keep.
Yes.
Just so that it is an important day that's still significant in their lives. Another couple, they did something fun, and all of their friends sent a delivery of their favorite foods to this couple's house.
That's amazing.
They had like a giant buffet in their own houses of everybody's favorite foods from different restaurants, different cuisines. So yes, absolutely. I think that it's important to lean in on that support and to talk about it. And on that note, I think that having that conversation and admitting that, you need to chat is something that a lot of people it's not natural for them. So any tips on that?
I think a part of this is putting it out there and acknowledging that every single person is really going through this at the same time, right? We're many weeks in, and I think there's been a lot of media and a lot of conversations about the fact that this is hard across the board. We're isolated, we're feeling stuck, we're feeling disconnected. And how good it feels to look to a person or to send a message or to FaceTime with someone that is close to us and kind of just acknowledge that this is bad, right? Or this is really stressful. And to have that moment with someone, it can really allow that release of emotion that we do need, right? Because especially when we're talking about being cooped up at home with our partner, with our spouses, there's a lot of rising tension. You're really staring at the same four walls with that person, right? And I think it's important that we can use this, not always, because I want to be realistic, but use this as a time when we are feeling super stressed out, right? To look at your partner and say, like, listen, I need you a bit right now. And I'm struggling a bit right now. And we can use this as almost good practice right?
Yes.
For when you are married, that this is a time of real crisis. And during times of real crisis, we need to reach out and connect and bond and be supported by those around us.
Absolutely. I've been saying to a lot of the couples is that the wedding is the day of, and your marriage is what's going to last a lifetime. And so you're going to get through this together, and you're going to be stronger as a couple and stronger as a family for that lifelong relationship.
That is such good advice, and it is so true.
Absolutely.
The wedding is incredible, right? The wedding was, for me, it was the best day that my husband Dustin and I say it was the best day of our lives.
Yes.
But it goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? It's over. And then it's really the two of you. So it's, if anything, and I know we can't always feel this way because sometimes we do get in those negative slumps, or we do get in those anxious slumps, right?
Yeah.
Where our thoughts are going, what am I going to do? What if the wedding keeps getting pushed, and our questions, we get into the what if world. I talk about this a lot, right?
Yes. And that actually brings me on to the next topic that I wanted to chat with you about is the brides whose wedding dates are still coming up. So these are brides who've either already rescheduled, but the date is coming. And so there is that little bit of anxiety about like this day is coming and it's going to be, what is it going to be now? It's not going to be what it was supposed to originally be. There's brides whose weddings are scheduled in July, August, even October, who don't know if they're going to have the day they envisioned it to be or not. So there's a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of stress around planning that. Like I had a bride tell me the other day, I still need to book a couple vendors for my October wedding, but should I do that? Should I continue planning? I don't know. There's so much stress around the whole idea of the wedding now. So any tips about acknowledging the stress and the anxiety?
So it's a really excellent question, and it's one that I wish I had a firm answer, right? How do we manage this kind of looming pushing when there is a lot of information that we don't know? Yes. Right? There's a lot that we don't know right now. So when I work with my own clients about managing their anxieties, is we know a couple things. Anxiety comes from feeling a lack of predictability and a lack of control. Yes. Right? And anxiety also comes from underestimating our ability to cope and overestimating the threat, right? The threat of this date to keep getting pushed and pushed.
Yes.
So when we're talking about managing that, I always talk about what are the small pieces or what are some actionable practices that you can control no matter what the date is, right? Are the vendors going to be the same? Are the colors going to be the same? Is the theme going to be the same? You can work on a song list that no matter what date it is, the band or the DJ can still play it, right? So small pieces that you can feel are going to be constant and are going to be consistent no matter what your date is, October or February or whatever, right? Yeah. These are pieces that you know you have in your control that can manage your stress levels. And in other cases, the date can be a date, right? If that makes sense.
Absolutely. One of the other things I have suggested to brides, and just like you mentioned, make that song list. That's something that's not going to change. Choose a dress if you can online, or a style of dress. That's not going to change. Another really important one, and a great way to use this sort of self-isolation time, is to write your vows.
Yes, that's excellent.
It's a great time to sit, reflect about why you love this person, why you want to be married.
I love that.
A month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, why you want to be married to this person. This is a great time to sit back, reflect on that, and write those vows. And a lot of couples tend to leave that to sort of the last few weeks before the wedding. Your feelings are going to be the same. Yeah.
That's a great point. We have all the time in the world now.
Exactly.
Right? That I remember when it came to our planning process, it got close to the wedding, and that's when we did our table numbers.
Yes.
Right? Or that's when we did our seating chart. And it was such a stressful experience that I was like, well, we left it so close to the end that even if you create kind of a visual, the more things you plan, the more things that you take into action that you can control, the more your anxiety is going to be managed.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, it's about knowing that you can handle the situation. The anxiety, like I mentioned, is coming from underestimating yourself. So really reinforcing to yourself that you've got this.
Yes.
You have been planning this for a while. It's still going to be beautiful, even on a different date.
Exactly.
And not making too big of a threat. And that, to me, goes back to saying the date is a date. And that date, and if you believe in destiny, if you believe in fate, you will be married on the date that is meant just for you.
Exactly. That was so well said.
Yeah, thank you. I've been trying my best to chat with couples as best I could, but of course, you're the expert here. My next little question, I guess, to you is about couples that have been dealing with this together, and people react differently to stress, to depression, to anxiety, to worry, to fear, and all of those are emotions that couples are facing right now, and it's affecting their relationship.
Of course.
So advice for couples that are going through this together, want to be there for each other, but this is unprecedented and no one could have foreseen it.
I think it's important to start off by saying that there are a few couples in the world right now that are not feeling stress towards each other, right? Whether you have
I agree. Married, about to be married, engaged, dating, everybody's
we're all kind of doing this together.
Absolutely.
But I do think part of maybe why I'm here today is to maybe bring a little education into, if you start noticing that your partner, right, the person that you're about to marry and spend the rest of your life with, their presentation is starting to change, right? And maybe they're starting to change in that their mood is not switching as much. Maybe they're presenting as they're not as interested in activities that they usually are. They're oversleeping. They're not able to sleep. Maybe their appetite has changed. Maybe they were big into exercise and going for walks, and that's no longer something that they're doing, right? Maybe you're finding their motivation is lower. Maybe you're finding that they're a little more irritable, right? Or a little too irritable. I'm actually going to use that word, right?
Okay.
The emotional responses to the situation, let's say the chicken gets burned at dinner, right? And they have an extreme emotional response. That's something that may warrant a conversation between partners saying, I'm noticing that you're feeling this way, or it seems to me that you're feeling really, really stressed. And in those situations, there's a couple things that I'm going to recommend we do.
Okay.
So other than just talking and communicating, I think it's important to reach out to other people, right? Reach out to people outside of the house, connect with your support system. That's one. Exercise is big, right? So I know a lot of us are getting really, really, really cooped up at home. And by exercise, I mean just going for a walk, right? Just kind of getting some air, getting the blood flowing in our body, getting the hormones moving in our brains and our bodies so that we can regulate, right? And feel a little more stable or just a little calmer.
Right.
Right?
So there is a physiological piece to it too.
Absolutely. A lot of us, sorry, I don't know where I went there. I think a lot of us there's only so much we can do at home. Not all of us are lucky to have spaces where there's tons of places where we can go and we can move. And naturally, humans are put on this planet to connect with people and to do things. And the fact that we're not able to do that it creates a physiological change, it creates a cognitive change, and it creates a pretty significant emotional change. So it's about changing their physiological state by exercising or doing some deep breathing and mindfulness. There are so many apps out there that you can use, like Calm, Melodies, or listening to a podcast to regulate ourselves. But in the event that you're noticing that your partner's presentation is maybe too stressed, right, by noticing some of the pieces that I noted earlier, then maybe it's time to reach out, right? To reach out to a professional so that they can actually speak to someone and have some real coping strategies reinforced so that we can get through this time and make it to the wedding.
And any suggestions on what resources are available at this time for folks to reach out to, either couples or just in general? Because I know that there are some services that have been put in place specifically around this time, because a lot of people are experiencing the need to seek help.
So I know that there's been a significant, I'm not entirely informed about the public resources because I am a private therapist.
Okay.
But I do know that there have been significant government dollars put into mental health supports for counseling during this time. I do know that there are tons of mental health supports on Instagram that you can actually do a hashtag mental health Toronto and things can show up. I also believe that the Government of Ontario website has several resources of, if you're noticing this, right, these are some specific strategies that you can use. There's a lot out there. I know that there, we ourselves, we have a couple webinars, the social work consulting group, about parenting, right? Some couples are getting married and they already have children, parenting through COVID and how to manage stress through COVID, how to manage working from home, right? That's a big piece that's causing a lot of stress. If you're living at home with your partner and both of you working from home, it's very difficult. So these are all, there's tons of websites, tons of resources out there that are Ontario specific. You just
Okay, perfect. And I know a lot of these services are offering virtual consults as well, and a lot of therapists are seeing they're seeing folks virtually through video calls, through chat messaging and such. So
yes,
hopefully that should be able to help.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. We are all offering telecounseling, and initially I found when we started this, it was a little strange, right? Because I think we all missed and sitting there and talking to someone and being that space where you get that empathy piece, that this is a really stressful time across the board.
I think just saying it out loud sometimes even just helps.
Exactly.
Yeah. For everyone who's watching, in case you're as new to this as I am, there is an option on the corner that allows you to drop in questions. I'm seeing some come in through the comments, so if you want to use that question feature, I think it helps us keep the questions in one spot. One of the questions, Emma, that I did get was about that lack of control. So one of my brides reached out, and I know we may have covered this in one of the earlier chats we had, but she's saying, I'm a type A personality. I like things organized. I like things in their little checklists and check boxes. And right now there's so much unknown. And I know myself as a planner, this is what I do professionally, is plan and is to have things organized. And the current global situation just does not allow for that.
No.
Thoughts on that?
It's a great question. It's a great question, and it's one that I think a lot of us type A's, including myself, it's really pushing our resilience, right? Because for people like us, I think we thrive on the planning, we thrive on the controlling, on the scheduling, on the calendars, on the movement.
Yes.
And I think a great tip during this time is for us to really focus on being kind and gentle in the way that we are speaking to ourselves, right? And saying things like, I am organized. I've done everything that I can to keep things, to control what I can control, and kind of relinquishing some of the power that we love to hold, but almost having that increased comfort in knowing that there are some things out of our control. And this can be a time when we focus on ourselves and focus on our health and focus on being at home with our partners and connecting with our partners, right? Being in the present. I don't know how much before this time we've all really had to focus on the here and now. And for type A people, we're constantly looking ahead, right? Yeah. It's constantly looking to the next plan. What can I check off my list? And it makes us feel good. So this is a time, just going back to what I mentioned about getting creative, this is a time when we need to really tune into those creative juices and say, what can fill that need for me when I can't plan, when I can't schedule, when I know that things are out of my control? What can I do? Does that mean organizing my pantry?
Yeah.
Does that mean cleaning out my closet?
Guilty.
Or cleaning, right? Like, or I've cleaned my makeup brushes. I don't even really wear makeup. Like there are certain things like that we can focus on that make us still feel productive. Because I think a lot of type A people, that checking off the list and the planning and controlling it almost like it fuels us, right?
Yes.
And if we can't do that in terms of our event, then what can we do at home to make us generate that feeling of productivity, right? And knowing that everything you've done for your wedding has likely happened, right? You've controlled those pieces already. What else can we shift to make us feel a little calmer and in control?
I'll share what I've been doing. So I, by profession, am a planner.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time and energy on planning all of these weddings that have now been rescheduled. And I personally felt a huge loss. And I took a week and I grieved it and I cried it out. And it was very hard to go through that. And then I scrambled around looking for what I can do next. And I have found that I'm spending a lot of time with my plants. So,
I'm cooking. So I'm with you entirely. There's only so many soups and cookbooks I can make.
I have got little planters. I am marking them and putting labels on them, obsessing a little bit.
That's okay.
But it's helping. It is truly helping. And for anyone, who's looking for something to sort of let out that energy and feel productive still, I think that's such great advice, is to find a different way to channel that need to be
energy.
Exactly. So it's really helping. And I know my husband has decided to pull out a coloring book that he's had for a few years and never had the chance to actually color.
Yes. So I think just to that point, right? Like, we've never had the time to do the things that have been on our to-do list forever.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And even the weather is changing, gardening or getting outside and doing planting, it's meditative, right?
It's so therapeutic. Absolutely.
So it's something that I'm encouraging all the time, to get outside, to feel the sun, to see your neighbors around you. If you have the opportunity to do some planting or some gardening, do it. If you don't, just sit outside and see people's faces. We need to see people's faces.
And that's so true, because I know so many of us are spending so much more time than usual on our screens. Because now we're doing all our meetings virtually, we're doing all our education virtually, we're doing all our communication virtually, which is in front of a screen. And so, for sure, I hear what you're saying with go out and just look at something that's not a screen.
Exactly. We need it. Our brains need it. There was actually, I'm not going to be able to quote the psychologist, but we can look it up after the fact. But I just read something that, when we see someone in their faces and we can look at them in their eyes, it registers in our brain that feeling of oxytocin, which is like the love emotion. It makes you feel connected and it contributes to happiness. It registers in a very different way than how you and I are looking at each other on the screen. Right? And the effects and the release of that oxytocin is going to be significantly reduced when we are looking at each other on the screen. So that just encourages, especially, it's going to be such a gorgeous weekend to get outside, to smile at your neighbors, right? And notice after you do that, notice how that feels. And notice if you have a little bit of a mood improvement, or if something makes you laugh easier, because those are the very little things that we can control in this very big situation that feels out of control.
Absolutely. Just one final note before I let you go. We talked about the grief and dealing with the grief and the loss. We talked about the stress and the anxiety. We talked about the lack of control. I have one other question that comes in that's talking about fear. And she says, I've rescheduled my date already, but I fear that I'm going to have to do it again. And I thought that was, a very important point. There is still a lot of unknown out there, and that's leading to a bit of fear. Any thoughts on coping with the fear?
I think fear kind of ties part and parcel with anxiety.
Absolutely.
And that fear is really real. But the fact that this bride has already pushed this date, I imagine that if she actually reflected, or if the bride reflected on how she got through this first portion, who she relied on, what were her practices to keep her calm, right? Or to allow herself to feel those feelings. She already has a leg up.
Yes.
That's what I'm starting to notice, that some of my clients that have struggled with anxiety, right? And that's a period of anxiety that she's already pushed her date. Those who struggle with anxiety and know what the real stress is, that they are better equipped when another stress incident comes, right?
Absolutely.
So that is still a question mark, but I imagine that if you actually turn into the self and recognize what are the strategies that have worked for you thus far, that have allowed you even to push your date and kind of get through that first moment, you're going to be able to do it again.
Yeah, because you've got all the tools.
Yes.
And it's about going back and reflecting on, you are stronger than you've acknowledged, and you can do this.
Exactly. Well said.
Awesome. Emma, I just had one more question that popped up that looks like, perhaps if you have a few more minutes, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So this is a bride who is 2021. Her original date is 2021. And she's saying, and I'm really glad that she brought this up, is I'm a 2021 bride. I'm planning my wedding, but I'm surrounded with lots of people that are grieving their weddings. And so I feel guilty celebrating, I found the perfect dress or I found the perfect DJ, while everybody is worried and stressed about wedding planning. So she's dealing with guilt about her wedding planning.
I think that means she's a very empathetic person.
Absolutely. Very thoughtful.
Very thoughtful, very reflective. And the fact that you're even able to acknowledge that guilt within yourself during a process that really is historically filled with so much joy is a kudos to you, and the fact that you really are tuning into everyone else's emotions. But at the same time, enjoy this process as much as you can, right? And acknowledge that guilt and know that you're actually quite a special person, right? And you can support your friends, those who are grieving through this, and maybe your joy, right, and your empathy and ability to connect with them can improve their moods. And you can help share your joy with them, because just the way that fear is contagious, so is joy.
Absolutely.
So someone that is actually...
It's contagious.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone that is enjoying planning right now, we could use to hang out with more people like that, so that we can feel that joy, right?
Spread that excitement, spread that joy. And
exactly.
And I mean, you're already being mindful of the fact that they're going through something that's slightly different from what you're experiencing in the wedding planning process, but still, like, sharing that joy is obviously still valuable to us as a community.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. That's all my questions for today. If you have any
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
my pleasure.
it. And if anyone feels like they do need any support or professional support, they can reach out to the Social Work Consulting Group. And I'm Emma Fogel, and I'm happy to offer.
And I will share contact information as well. I will share the website.
Thank you for having me.
Social work. Thank you, Emma.
Have a great